welcome to the GeekyTwins, and today we're going to be playing something a little bit different, a visual novel called Autumn's Journey. I got this from the Itch.io game site. I'll put the link in the description down below. Something new and different. I wanted to try it out, so let's go ahead and start. Let's see settings. Okay. Let me turn down the music a little bit. It's nice. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and start. Chapter 1. The End of Summer. Sunlight filtered through the airy birch forest as the lush ferns grazed my boots. The muggy atmosphere that had hung over the past few months was now being replaced by the subtle crispness of fall. Through the trees were still violet green. Apple-picking season was fast approaching for the town of Berri. You have to give me a little bit of time here to read this. I cheerfully stretched one arm toward the sky, inhaling deeply. And thus my weekly scouting for monsters, bandits, or anything out of the ordinary that may harm local citizens is over. Auralee.
Right!
And that concludes my mission. I laughed, wondering why I announced my agenda to no one. I guess I always wanted to say that out loud. Walking around alone does prompt you to monologue just so you can hear a voice. I just wish I wasn't restricted to freelance work in Berri, though. How long is my training going to last? I'm more than ready for knighthood. I can do this. I adjusted my sword belt, making sure the hilt could be pulled out at a moment's notice. Humming, I decided to meander back to the village by following the thin river down the gentle slope. I love the terrain here. There was always an inclination, a higher up. I could get a breathtaking panorama of Berri and its endless orchards. Especially in autumn, when the leaves were so violently red that the entire forest seemed to ignite, and the smell of frost and fallen foliage lingered welcomely. It was then I spotted someone entirely out of the ordinary near the riverbank, leaning against a tree. Birch trees were not exactly comfortable resting spots, and I did not recognize the stranger's attire. Hello? Are you a traveler? His face came into view and I realized he was sleeping, but that's not what caught me off guard. He had a beautiful protrusions resembling shale shards jutting out of his long hair, right where someone's ear should be, or was it a decoration covering his ears? I suddenly wanted to touch them, but I resisted. If he woke up in an untimely manner, it would be awkward to explain. At first I was about to leave, but then I noticed something else rather odd. I saw no bags, no possessions, or anything else on him. This place was too far away from civilization for a simple afternoon stroll. Was he mugged? And if he had been in Berri previously, I would have known. It was that small of a town. Curiosity won me over. Hello? I grabbed his shoulder and gave it a gentle shake, finding his lack of response unnerving. I hovered a hand in front of his nose. Sure enough, he was breathing, and I did not see any injuries that suggested that he was knocked or unconscious. After more feeble attempts to wake him, I decided to improvise a camp. I did not want to leave him unattended, and I knew I couldn't drag his body very far. Tossing down my bag, I went to work. The fire crackled merrily as I opened my cloth, which contained a lump of rye bread and hard cheese. These were emergency rations lest I was able to return to Berri. Mother and father were probably worried. Just as I was about to bite into the cheese, I saw movement and glanced up, eyeing the stranger. Setting my food down, I cautiously shuffled over. I had previously placed his body in a supine position and used my bag as a substitute pillow. Though it was probably more lumpy than anything else, it was better than nothing. Are you awake now? You've been out all afternoon. I was getting worried.
Whoa!
In a split second, he shot up and then clumsily fell back. I caught his arm to steady him. Whoa, take it easy. He just got up. He flinched from my contact. I hastily let go, retreating slightly. I didn't get any sense of hostility, but he certainly seemed bewildered. Who are you? There was an uneasy edge in his voice, not quite one of panic, but more of anger. It was then I noticed that his eyes were brilliant amethyst hue, contrasting with his earthly hair tones. Auralee, I found you in the woods outside of Berri. The surprise did not leave his eyes. He stared at his hands and then covered his face. Lastly, he ran his fingers through his brown hair. His horrified reaction was so unsettling that I dumbly sat there for several seconds before mustering the courage to address him again. Are you alright? Obviously not, but I wanted to better grasp of the situation. He attempted to sit up again, but this time I was prepared. Again he was repelled by my touch, and I gave up trying to help him that way. He still appeared unstable, but he stopped moving at least. He actually did it?
The hell?
Here you go. He clutched at his temples, his fingers grazing over the archage in the place of his ears. He wobbled as he tried to stand, and I impatiently rushed to his side. Stop it! You obviously can't move in your condition, so you might as well sit down and clear your head. What's going on? Who are you? And what are you doing here? He looked at me as if he was registering me for the first time since asking who I was. Everything about him screamed overwhelmed, and he simply grit his teeth in frustration. Ask him if he's hungry. I decided to find another angle to help him open up. I did not consider myself intimidating, but it was possible he had no desire to answer anything. Are you hungry? I softened my voice and returned to my spot by the fire. I grabbed the cloth and gently offered him the rye bread and cheese. He only arched his eyebrow in disgust. What is that? That? It's food. You chew it. I ripped off a piece of the dark bread and demonstrated, humming delightfully to show that it was edible. He scoffed and averted his eyes.
I don't care.
I don't want it. It looks revolting. Sorry my pleasant food does not please my lord's tastes. Ugh. His attitude was rubbing off on me. Calm down. If anything, he's hiding that he's scared. He did just wake up in a foreign place. Are you nobility? He fell silent, and only the occasional cracker of the fire and the hooting of the owls interrupted the stillness. I leaned back and ruminated over my meal, careful to leave some food untouched in case he changed his mind. Ah, there was that apple tart, too. I'll save it for later. I wrapped up the cloth, only vaguely aware that the stranger was examining my every movement. It nettled me slightly, but I didn't comment. I did not want to do anything that would raise his guard even more. It was now dark, and I occasionally fed the fire, getting the feeling I was going to spend the night here. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally spoke up. Who are you again? Auralee. I'm from the town of Berri. And you? Kerr. He reluctantly uttered the name, gazing into the fire. He seemed much calmer now. And how did you get here? His lip curled, smirking knowingly. You probably wouldn't believe it if I told you. You have unusual eyes and a strange fashion accessory over your ears. I think I can find your story credible. He flexed his hand, scrutinizing his fingers. I didn't come here willingly. Out of all the places, I don't see why he decided to drop me off in this low-burn, simplistic... Kerr? He glared at me as if offended that I had addressed him directly. So, where are you from? I'm not particularly tied to any region. If it's not obvious already, I'm not one of you. I'm one of the dragons, an earth dragon. He stated it full of pride, with no ounce of humility. Dubiously, I inspected him from head to toe, taking note of the stone-like juts from his ears and his remarkable eyes. He balked under my stare, but quickly regained his dignity. So why would an earth dragon be here? It's not because I wanted to. He blurted it out angrily, then touched his unique ears for comfort. I sighed, then tilted my head as I absorbed his explanation. Alright, I'll admit I'm not exactly accepting this as feasible, but I'm not dismissing it either. You can't transform back? If I could, do you think I would remain in this pathetic body, so weak? I instinctively patted my sword hilt to counter that remark, but stopped when I saw him attempt to stand again.
Whoa!
It was like watching a toddler take his or her first steps, but instead of coaxing, I was fervently discouraging his efforts. We've already established that you're unfamiliar with your form. Besides, it's too dark to walk around aimlessly. I'll find a walking stick for you and we can return to Berri if you'd like. It'd feel wrong if I invaded you in this state.
I don't need your help.
Are you saying I can't handle myself? I'm pointing it out. Realizing we were both escalating our voices, I looked away in a huff, not wanting to have our encounter turn sour so rapidly. An altar. I need to find an altar. You heavenkind worships us, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean the dragonkind were here first, so it's only natural we pay our respects. I admit I thought dragons were more divine and irreproachable. Kerr was definitely giving me a different impression. I barely knew anything about the dragonkind, though. They focus on their own affairs. You will take me there. It was a plain statement, not a suggestion or a plea. Why an altar? They're all heavenkind made. How would it help you? He parried my question exasperately. It doesn't matter. Do you know where one is?
Yeah.
Yes, there's one not far from here. There's a cave that leads to it. Good. We shall go there this instant. He obstinately tried to stand up again, but I lunged forward and firmly sat him back down. He glared at me in disbelief, but my will was as stubborn as his. Morning. We will do this in the morning. Get some sleep, and I'll find an ideal walking stick. I don't think you'll master bipedism without some assistance, especially not in a day. It'll be very difficult if I have to physically support you the whole way there. So just take it easy tonight, and I'll keep watch while you're asleep. He fell silent and gave me a reluctant nod, closing his eyes wearily. I sighed gratefully, feeling moderately triumphant over that battle of pigheadedness. While Kerr grumbled, I leaned over and pulled a small blanket out of my bag. The temperature was still pleasant, even at night, but it could cool rapidly, especially since it was the end of summer. After returning some items to my bag, I reshaped it so it was a passable pillow again and offered it to Kerr, who seemed puzzled by its purpose. Believe me, you'll need something comfortable or you'll have trouble sleeping. Worse, you'll wake up with a sore back and getting to the altar will be even more troublesome. You already slept on it once. I think you can figure out how to support your head with it again. I laughed sheepishly at my own stab at lighting the mood, but I could tell it didn't work on Kerr. Disgruntled, he lay down on his side and experimented with a few positions before resting his head in satisfaction. At first he refused to use the blanket, but as the temperature dropped, he discreetly pulled it toward him when he thought I wouldn't notice. Probably to hide his expression, he rolled over on his back. His back was to me and the campfire. I had the feeling the initial shock took a lot out of him, and I admittedly hadn't helped him when he ruffled my feathers, more than once. Now that he slept, any irritation I still felt dispersed along with the summer heat. I would need to be mentally and physically prepared for tomorrow, stay cool and collected as autumn. I poked the fire and stayed on my watch until exhaustion beguiled me into resting my eyes for just a few minutes. Hey. Oh please, I've less sleep than you and I'm ready, energized. Let's go. Pouting, I poked Kerr with some more with the walking stick I had fashioned for him. It wasn't easy finding a sturdy stick in the birch forest, but I located a long one that would suffice. I had spent the morning carving off any bark that would, and even indented the top to make it an easier grip. Now it was my dragon prod. Up, arise, scared dragon!
Whoa!
Cut that out. Kerr hastily shot up, throwing off my blanket in a feeble attempt to hide the fact that he used it. I decided to counter his usual scowl with the perkiest, most cheerful grin I could muster.
Whoops, sorry about that.
Good morning! My greeting was genuine. For some reason, it satisfied me to know that my high spirits irked him. I could use my sunny disposition to my advantage. It'd be better than snapping at him at any rate. Stop poking me with that.
You're welcome.
It's your walking stick. Here, you're welcome. I turned it sideways and offered it to him. He warily gazed at it as if it was presenting a cobra instead, but carefully grasped it. Cautiously, he pressed the stick against the ground as he stood up. I remained close lest he toppled over like yesterday. His fingers drummed against the carved handle and he looked at me quizzically. You spent time on this?
Right.
Well, I wanted to finish it off with the pretty flowing ribbon, but I had the feeling you wouldn't like it. Grumbling, Kerr took a step forward, leaning on the stick before hesitantly taking another. With each step, he regained some confidence, and soon he was walking in a straight line, albeit with an uneven gait. He could not exactly break into a run, or even brisk stride, but it was a huge improvement from last night. I estimated we could reach the cave leading to the altar by mid-afternoon. I quickly packed and followed him, since I had the feeling the only thing on his mind was that altar. It's this way. I pointed toward the gentle incline, and Kerr narrowed his eyes resentfully. Going downhill would probably be difficult for him. As we headed towards our destination, I kept my distance at first, but I gradually drew toward Kerr, one hand extended in case of a stumble. Kerr balked and increased his distance between us, determined to progress on his own. However, his pace was excruciatingly slow, and he was unwilling to start any small talk. As the slope steepened, his footing became more unsteady, and I worryingly grabbed his arm for support.
Whoa!
What? He twirled around in surprise, and I actually did end up bracing him. Once he was stable again, I sighed. Look, I know you don't like me touching you, but if it's your priority is to get to that altar as soon as possible, I think you can swallow your dignity and accept my help. Besides, no one else is around to see you stumble.
I don't need your help.
You've done enough. I don't need any more help from you. He shifted his weight and used the stick to ward me away. I frowned disapprovingly. Hey, if you try and hit me with that thing, I'll confiscate it. Even I wouldn't do something like that. Gritting his teeth, he leaned heavily against one of the birch trees. When I get back, I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind. Who? My master. His curt answers stalled the rush of questions piling up in my head. It would be poor of me to interrogate him when he was still obviously overwhelmed by the situation. Right now, the goal was more important.
Right.
Then let's get you on that cave. You believe me? Everything I told you? Maybe you're just a very convincing actor, but I think even an actor would drop his charade after a while. Just as I was about to reach for him again, a low grumble pierced the forest. I glanced at Kern in amused bafflement. He averted his eyes, but I could tell he was embarrassed. You know, if you're hungry...
Shut
I'm
up.
not... I think you'll be able to walk faster if you have something to eat. What do dragons eat anyway?
Annoying.
Meddling heavenkind? I rolled my eyes. Well, you have the heavenkind stomach now, and I doubt it'll agree with a diet like that. But it does make sense that you wouldn't want to try bread or cheese. I doubt dragons thresh rye or run dairy farms. It was then I remembered the apple tart. Even if Kerr found the pastry part detestable, the fruit would probably be familiar to him. I urged him to sit down. When he refused, I simply made myself comfortable on the ground first. Here, this is the closest thing I have to something found in nature. I could forage, but that would take even longer. What is that? It's a pastry. My dad owns a bakery. You probably wouldn't understand that. It's basically a treat with apple filling, and I think some apricot jam. Thankfully, my dad preferred showing off the natural ingredients. As a result, the top of the tart had slices of appetizing fruit covered with a lustrous yellow glaze. Kerr sniffed it warily. It must have been agreeable enough since he accepted the pastry. You're welcome. As soon as he nibbled it, he realized how famished he was and quickly devoured the entire tart. I watched as he coughed slightly and wiped the crumbs off his mouth, but his expression was unreadable. So, how was it? Anything tastes fine when you're starving. Or you just inhaled it so fast you didn't actually taste it? Well, it should tide you over until we reach the altar. Kerr grabbed his stick and we resumed our trip. The extra sugar boost seemed to lift both at the pace and his mood, although he stayed taciturn. As we continued through the forest, I stopped and groaned when I spotted some dark trees.
Oh no.
Oh, those are Yfelben trees? Completely forgot. We should probably go around them. Yfelben? He peered at the thick, gnarled trunks. What, scared of the bark? It'll be quicker if we continue in a straight line. No, it's not about the trees. It's what lies in them. They make their perfect nests for avatarals.
The hell?
The hell are those? Those giant bird things? I thought you would know of them? I would if I understood your names. Why are you giving new names to everything anyway? We dragons were here first, and we were already established. I raised my hand to silence him, not wanting to make unnecessary noise. He scowled, but shrill cry startled both of us. Then what do you call that?
Whoa!
Usually food. Well, that'll be us now. Perched on one of the lower branches was a reptilian bird with scales running down its front. The rest of its body was covered in earth-toned feathers. Though probably no taller than 4 feet, its extremely wide wingspan and sharp talons made it a fearsome animal to encounter in the wild. Avatarals raised young way into the fall, so the mothers would be extra territorial this time of year. The bird ruffled its plume, making itself seem larger than it was, and it prepared to launch itself at us. I immediately stepped in front of Kerr, gripping my sword as I took defensive stance. With Kerr's condition, an instant retreat wouldn't work. I'd have to guard him.
Whoa!
What are you... You're not planning to fight it, are you?
Yeah!
Do we have a... Sure, look out! I shoved Kerr off balance. Thanks to my quick reflexes, we narrowly avoided a slash from the avatorial's talons. The wind whipped at my hair as debris flew up around us. I scrambled to my feet and sprinted forward, hoping to keep the avatar's attention away from Kerr. As it dove towards me, I slashed upward. It veered away, dodging my counterattack. Kerr, I'll keep it busy while you get away.
Bring it.
You stupid, I'm not leaving you behind. Kerr? I need you to take me to that altar. Maybe if you shouted the directions at me, I could get there alone.
Yeah!
I'm kinda busy here. I can't get my bearings in the middle of a battle. My aggravation was the incentive I needed to keep the avataral at bay. However, my training had never covered aerial attacks, and the bird's scaly front was like armor.
The hell?
Are you holding back? Well, it's just protecting its young. It's trying to kill you. You think I haven't noticed? Oh, for the wings, clip them. It won't hurt it, but it'll stop it from flying. Just clip the tips. I widened my stance as I prepared for another attack. At the last second, I leapt to the side, slicing at an angle. My sword beautifully sheared the avatar's thick primary feathers. The monster swerved into the ground, and its shoulder and head bearing the brunt of the crash. I let out a cry, and I felt a split second of guilt. That vanished with the yelp as the bird tried to tear me down with his talons. Luckily, the avataral was designed for swooping down at the prey rather than running on the ground, so it could only hobble awkwardly. As it screeched and fearfully spread its wings, I retreated, grateful that it was even slower than Kerr. I rove through the trees until it finally gave up chasing me. Sighing in relief, I looped back and returned to Kerr, who was also at a safe distance. Looks like it gave up, but what about its young? It'll be fine. The feathers will go back, and it can still hop back to its nest. Its babies won't need to eat as constantly at this stage anyway.
Thanks.
You sure know a lot about them. Thanks for the suggestion.
Tch.
He snorted indignantly. I already told you. They're food. Of course I know about them. Soon the forest was quiet once again, with only the sounds of our footsteps and the tap of Kerr's walking stick breaking the silence. Surprisingly, he did not protest when I suggested a safer route, nor when I walked nearly shoulder to shoulder with him. I had the feeling that starting a conversation would push my luck, so I kept my mouth shut and instead hoped for no more setbacks. This is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a very deep cave. You simply take a turn and the altar is right there.
The hell?
That's it. No complex mazes, no shiny sacred magic lake with a guardian or anything. Hey, we did what we could. This is a modest altar. I took a deep breath and smelled reminiscently. I haven't been here in years. I think I came before to make the occasional offering around harvest season. I gave Kerr a cheerful look, but he continued forward, ignoring my recollections. I shrugged and followed, catching up to him. Kerr awkwardly knelt down before the altar, discarding the walking stick once he was comfortable. His eyes closed with a softened scowl, almost as if he was meditating. Suddenly, his mineral-like ears perked. He stared directly at the statue. There was no change in atmosphere, but I could tell Kerr was angry. His hand tightly gripped his knee. I know we're connected. I demand that you remove this stupid curse. He fell silent, and I looked around in bemusement. He was talking to someone? But I could not hear the other half of the conversation. For some reason, that made me even more attentive as I tried to piece together everything. You can't be serious. So I said a few things, but... Huh? Yes, I've met one. That's how I found the altar in the first place. He whirled towards me and blinked in confusion, as if studying me for the first time. I stiffened, wondering why he was staring at me so intensely. Once he finally turned away, I relaxed, although I could not help but feel anxious about the discussion. What about me?
Annoying.
Weak, pathetic, gives strange names to animals, doesn't seem to know much about Ishtera or how the world works. Is he referring to heavenkind in general or just me? What? I guess their food is half decent or something. What? No, you're not sending me to a pointless inspirational quest. I'm not a child. I can't even walk in this form. So your plan is... At that moment, a blinding light flashed from where Kerr was standing, and I flinched in shock. Whoa, Kerr? By the time I knelt down and warningly grabbed his shoulder, the flash had already disappeared. Oops. Sorry. In one smooth movement, Kerr removed my hand and stood up without the walking stick. His eyes still seemed focused beyond me, and he slowly nodded to himself. Did your powers return or something? He extended his palm and lurched toward the ground, slamming it against the hard stone. The entire cave shook. The tremor visibly and mentally shook me as well, and my heart pounded loudly. I felt so paralyzed that I couldn't even scream. Once I found my balance, I looked broodingly at Kerr, who flexed his unharmed fingers with a smug expression. So... He barely glanced in my direction. It's not exactly what I wanted. However, a portion of my original powers and strength are back, along with my balance. I can actually be comfortable in this form now. He gave a dismissive kick to the walking stick, then promptly walked away from the altar.
Right!
Well, that's a promise. That's promising, at least. What will you do next? Do what he ordered me to do and become normal again.
I don't need your
I can
help.
handle this on my own. So you don't need to follow me. I had to. Anyway, there was only one way to get out of the cave. But as soon as we were in the open air, Kerr took off running with a grace and speed I'm sure no real heavenkind could ever replicate. I blinked once, and sure enough, I was alone. What just happened? Hang on, I'm trying to fix this. Okay. I scratched the back of my head, still absorbing what just happened. You're welcome? Burying my head in my hands, I shook out my hair in frustration. Was I expecting something from this? Well, a thank you would have been nice. I tapped my sword hilt for reassurance. It's what a knight does. They help the weak and demonstrate their generosity when it's needed. Well, Kerr's not weak anymore. He can definitely take care of himself now. I guess my duty's done.
Right!
Mission complete. Just some experience as a reward and a discarded walking stick. Deciding not to linger any longer, I started walking back towards Berri. My parents would certainly be worried by now.